My guest this morning is Dr. Terriyln C. Rivers Cannon, and she is a school social worker born and raised in Savannah, Georgia, who motivates, empowers, and inspires all those who she comes in contact with on a local, state, and national level. She is the 2019 National School Social Worker of the Year, who is the first Georgian, first African American, and first African American female recipient. She was also the 67th president for the School Social Workers Association of Georgia, and the second to have served from within the Atlanta City school system, as well as the second to have served 2 terms as the organization's state president. Terriyln has devoted the last 18 years to improving the lives of Georgia's school-age population. Her role is that of a child advocate, providing appropriate interventions and services that helps hundreds of children and families each year who are at risk for educational failure. She received both her Doctor of Educational Leadership 2007, Educational Specialist 2006 degrees from Argosy University, Sarasota, Florida, a Master's in Social Work from Florida State University 1990, and a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice from Voorhees College in 1990. Terriyln is a certified school social worker, facilitator with the Council on Alcohol and Drugs for both the STOP or STOP and Super STOP programs, Alcohol and Drug Prevention Program, and Question, Persuade, Refer, QPR, Suicide Prevention Gatekeeper, Instructor for Suicide Prevention, Facilitator as a Darkness to Light Sexual Abuse Prevention Training from Stewards of Children, Certified in Mental Health First Aid, Certified Mental Health First Aid Suicide Prevention Trainer, Lifelines Society for the Prevention of Teen Suicide, Trauma, Brain 201, Building Resiliency, and Check-In Connect. Terriyln is the wife of a retired Army veteran and the proud mother of 2 sons. Terriyln's motto is, individually we are one drop, but together we are a body of water. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Reading Circle microphones, Dr. Terriyln Rivers Cannon. Terriyln, Dr. Rivers Cannon, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. And the connection is nice and clear. You're coming through loud and proud. And listen, I saw the note about reading the bio. And let me tell you why I always read the full bio, because my listening audience, I want them to be inspired and encouraged that when they hear bios like that, they say, you know what, if it can happen for Dr. Cannon Rivers, it can happen, or Rivers Cannon. Which is Rivers Cannon, right? Rivers Cannon, it can happen for me. All right, so that's why I like to read it all. Congratulations to you on your recent awards.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, so now this is going to be a good conversation for a lot of different reasons because as you work obviously in the educational population, I'm an educator as well. And I know down in Georgia, they went back to school already back in like the first couple weeks of August. Here in New Jersey, we don't go back until the first week or so in September because we're on that. We get out in June, go back in September. You all get out in May, go back in August, correct?
Correct.
All right. So then we're kicking off yet another school year, and you're working with a population in terms of the social work and everything. And I don't know about Atlanta or Georgia, but I suspect it's the same thing that we get here in Paterson, New Jersey, that we get a lot of children and teachers and everybody that come into the building for that matter, that comes into the building with a lot of baggage. So the work that you do is that much more important.
That would definitely be true. School for us and our system started last week, and I must say the referrals have come in quite rapidly. My desk has been overflowing. One of the counselors stepped into my office and she said to me, are these all the referrals that you have received already? And I said, they most certainly are. And the bulk of the referrals that I've received thus far, or the majority of them, are from our homeless population. And it is so very unfortunate that we have so many families that are in need.
Right.
and the services that they need are not so readily available. So you provide what you can and provide the comfort and reassurance that every day will not be the same for you, and this will not be forever as far as your situation is concerned. So especially with your children, these are not situations that they ask to be in. Of course, no one wakes up and says, hey, I want to be in this particular situation as far as homeless is concerned. So you give that reassurance, that comfort, because when they're coming in, they already have a wall up because they don't want to say, I am in need of assistance.
That's absolutely
right. So you let
right.
them know that, hey, we're here to support you. We're here to help you and make this transition as easy as possible.
That's absolutely right. And interestingly enough, and ironically enough, and I know it's by divine provocation, I'm having this conversation with you because just on Thursday, I did a presentation with some of my colleagues to an institute that we were having for our administrators, and we were doing it on restorative practices, restorative justice. And that the whole upshot of the presentation is we're going to have to change how we do business in terms of how we're interacting with our children and families based on everything that's going on outside of the school. And one of the poems that we shared, I'm going to read it because it's fitting to what we're talking about, is by Joshua T. Dickerson. And the title of the poem is "'Cause I Ain't Got a Pencil." That's the title of the poem, "'Cause I Ain't Got a Pencil." And the author of that is Joshua T. Dickerson. I woke myself up because we ain't got an alarm clock. Dug in the dirty clothes basket, 'cause ain't nobody washed my uniform. Brush my hair and teeth in the dark, 'cause the lights ain't on. Even got my baby sister ready, 'cause my mama wasn't home. Got us both to school on time to eat us a good breakfast. Then when I got to class, the teacher fussed, 'cause I ain't got a pencil. Now, that's by Joshua T. Dickerson, and that encapsulates or captures the experience of so many of our children.
It definitely does. And even further to add on to what you shared, I can give you a firsthand example. I had a student just to come in on yesterday, as a matter of fact. And as I shared, school started for us last week on the 12th. Well, he had not been to school the entire time, and yesterday was his first day. So the counselor called me in, and she said, Dr. Rivers Cannon, can you step in my office? I said, of course. So as she was dialoguing with him, getting his schedule, she was asking him where had he been. And when I came in, I dug into it a little deeper to ask him. And he shared that he had to stay at home to assist his family. So, of course, that put up my radar to try to find out, okay, what's going on. So when I got a little deeper into that, then I found out that utilities were an issue through no fault of his own. So I could tell by his facial expression that he thought that he was in trouble by sharing this information.
Right.
And I wanted to be very clear because as school social workers, it's often misinterpreted by our families that we provide a service for and by our children that we are coming to take them away or we're just always looking at attendance, and that is not the case. We are a support system, and we're providing services of assistance in that very same token. And I wanted to reassure him, additionally, that this is a safe place, and you're not in trouble by any means, because what's going on with you right now is through no fault of your own.
That's
you
correct.
have no control over that situation, and it's going to be okay.
And you're
We're
absolutely
going to take
right.
this one step at a time.
And you said it earlier, something that I've always said. There is not a one of us that asked to be here. Not one. There's not a human being alive that put their hand up and said, I want to be born, and I want to be born to that set of parents. My point is, we have no control over who our parents are, what we're born into, and many of our children that we serve are born into some horrendous situations.
Definitely.
And many
Absolutely.
of them come to school because school, for many of them, is the safe haven.
It definitely is.
And as you were just saying, our role is to support you, to help you, not necessarily to put you in trouble or so forth. But again, like I said, I just left my school that I had for the last 6 years was an urban school. It was urban to the second power. And many of the schools that I've led have been in that predicament. And when I tell you, Dr. Rivers Cannon, some of the experiences that we've had, as a matter of fact, I was reading the local paper just yesterday that the housing project right across the street from the school that I just left, a young man got killed in a drive-by shooting. There was 3 standing together. 2 of the young men were hit by the bullets. Another one was killed by the bullet. And I saw one of the teachers post on Facebook, "Oh my God, that's right across the street from the school we're in." And she was absolutely right. But that's the environment that our kids are in, that we're worrying about them getting 2 + 2 = 4, but they're going through gunshot just to get to the building. I don't know if that's the way it's in Atlanta, but I know in the building that I just left, I got kids coming past drug dealers, drug users, and gunfire just to get to the building.
Oh, they are definitely experiencing a great deal, and that's why our plight and fight, for lack of a better term, on mental health is so vitally important. You know, we, as school social workers, we are at the front end of mental health, and we relay that information so openly with those that we deliver information to. Each year, we provide a presentation and giving a full breakdown of that. And just for those simple examples, and I take that back, I shouldn't say simple examples, but we put them in terms where our audiences and the educational system would be able to receive the information. And our children come from, as you stated, horrific backgrounds in some instances. And just to have that understanding, when they come in and they present as being angry or upset, it's not directed specifically at that individual. It is the backgrounds or the environments from which they are coming from.
Correct.
And a lot of times, you know, individuals don't realize that it is transgenerational mental health cases that are going on. So we have to delve into that and peel back those layers to understand what is it that they are experiencing, because they're not going to be very forthcoming to tell you, hey, you know, I have someone in my family that suffers from depression.
Right.
Or I have seen my best friend go through an incident where they got shot.
Right.
When we were just having a good time at a party. And, you know, not a party where they themselves were carrying guns. They were just there enjoying themselves, and something occurred.
No, that's absolutely right. And I'm sure, and so you're familiar when I say the term ACEs, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, for listening audience, ACEs is a various scenarios and experiences that people have gone through that cause trauma. And there's various levels of trauma. And again, depending on, and I don't even want to really label it to just urban, because I know what's going on in the suburban areas as well. But we have kids coming to school now that have gone through or are going through so much trauma. And to what Dr. Rivers Cannon was just talking about in terms of mental health, I can't, and I was just having this conversation with one of my fellow principals, again, on Thursday morning. And she was saying, well, you know, Mark, all this stuff has always been there. I said, no, not to this degree, not to this level, or because we're exposed to it so much between the media and social media. But I just don't believe it was as prevalent during the time I was growing up as it is now. I just don't believe, because I don't think we had as easily access to guns as we do now. And I do not believe that, because at this point, Dr. Rivers Cannon, literally you could get killed for stepping on somebody's toe. I don't remember it being like that in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, so forth and so on. I think we've gotten progressively worse. My point in saying all that is our kids are coming to school. As you just said, your school just started and you already had referrals, like a stack of them already. Now, that's opening week. Our kids are coming to us and our parents are coming to us traumatized. What do we in the school community, because you're a social worker, I know my social work, guidance counselors, child study teams, all that, how do you all get yourselves prepared to face this on a constant and daily basis? You know,
we provide the training. We receive training additional training to always stay on top of the policies and procedural changes, as well as obtaining as many resources as we possibly can, connecting with the community definitely. That is a huge, huge plus. Anywhere across this nation, it is so vitally important to connect with your community because your community is going to pour back into your school, especially those connectors that are right in the area where your schools are. These are things that we do pre-planning before our students get there. And then when our families come in, we try our very best and encourage others to welcome them with open arms, because that's what they're needing, to be open with welcome arms. Just as you said earlier, for a lot of our students, school is a safe haven for them. They know they can come there and have at least 2 meals if they are not able to get meals anyplace else. They know that they can have comfort there because someone in that building is going to reach out to them and say, good morning, good afternoon, and how are you doing today? They may not necessarily get that when they go home every day.
That's right.
They may be in fear if they're catching the bus or if they're walking every day. We just never know. So I've always made it my plight to put myself in their situation. And when I do that, that makes me even more conscientious.
Absolutely.
Because you just never know what your situation can possibly be at any point in time.
That's right. And you mentioned a word earlier in when you were speaking, and that word was depression. And I've become very familiar with depression because I've been actually dealing that with some immediate family members. And a lot of people get the term depression and sadness. They use them interchangeably or either get them confused or they think they're the same thing, and they're not. Depression is far beyond and way deeper than just sad. I'm sad about something. I mean, I've watched family members get thrown into financial or either residential situations that threw them into a depression where, like, they really, in depression, and you can speak to this more than I can, depression is almost like it's something beyond your control, is voices going on inside of you in your head that's literally stomping out the voice inside that's trying to say, yes, I can do this. That depressive voice is saying, no, you can't. And it actually overrides. So when you've been traumatized, a lot of times the traumatization will be a trigger for depression, which in my mind and in research and everything that I've been learning over the last couple of months is way deeper than just I'm sad about something. Talk to me a little bit about that.
It definitely is. As you shared, the sadness and depression. When you're sad, you know that this is something that's going to be in passing. Within a day or so, you're going to be over that. When you go through depression, that voice is telling you you can't get up out of bed.
Right.
You're not going to be successful. Your body language is as such as, you don't want to pick yourself up or get dressed during the day. Where you were always smiling and happy, you no longer have that even energy, if you will, to do those things. You can't, sometimes you would hear older individuals say, pull yourself up or pull yourself together. You are not able to do that.
That's correct.
You want to do that.
Correct.
Within yourself, you say, okay, I can do this. But it's that voice that says, no, you can't do this. And then you need that extra pull. And let me say this. It's nothing wrong with going out and seeking assistance.
Correct. And
as
I'm
it
glad you went there.
pertains to counseling.
Now, I need you to say that again because I was going to go there with you. I'm glad you got there before I did. And especially, I don't want to just say in the African-American community, but based historically on the African-American, we are less likely to seek help, and we are more likely to stigmatize it. So I need you to really get into that and say that again. It's
nothing wrong with seeking counseling, and it's absolutely not, because it is going to prepare you and teach you the tools for you to be able to move on to that next step, because there are stages, and it is a process. It's going to show you how to go one day at a time. And these are phases that you have to go through to process this. and let you know, okay, you may have one day, and then move on to the next phase of that. But when you see it's getting 10 days, 5 days, and I'm just giving an example of that,
Correct.
then that is extenuatingly too much.
No,
and it may be a situation where you may have to get on medication.
Right.
But that's for a psychologist or a psychiatrist to determine. Please don't ever try to self-medicate yourself.
Correct. And this is why this is so serious, because I've lost a grammar school student to suicide some years ago. Mm-hmm. We just had a high school student back in, must have been April, May. This young lady was a straight A student. She was a student athlete. And we got the word that she had committed to her sister. Both she and her sister were in the high school. One was a senior, I believe. I believe the one who committed suicide was a senior, and the sister was like a sophomore. And she couldn't find her sister one day in the school, and they went to the home and found the girl gone from suicide. And it perplexed everyone because the child, like I said, straight A student, honor roll, college-bound, student athlete. So no one could kind of figure out what went wrong there. But I'm saying all that to say is, just because you're successful or smiling and looking happy does not mean you're not depressed.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And this is a part of our presentation that we also give. Some of those telltale signs are, I'm not going to be here anymore. Giving away items that are very valuable to them. Making those statements, those defining statements of, you may not see me anymore, as I just stated. Those are things that are just, okay, that's that light bulb coming on, that
right.
persistent sadness that you may take note of, as I shared before. You have to be cautious and careful. Now, I'm not going to say that every single case may be the same, because each individual is different. But these are some things to monitor and watch out for in individuals.
Absolutely. And again, I've become because this is the way I kind of operate. Anytime any kind of sickness, any kind of anything comes to me, I start doing my research. And since I've experienced some of the things you just even talked about, my sister said those exact words to me that you just said, in terms of, I don't think I'm going to be here too much longer. Some of those same exact symptoms, I've heard and seen them. Excuse me. And again, like you said, when it's persistent, it's not something like, you get sad about an event or what have you, but when over time you begin to see body language change. And where I'm going again with this is not happening to just folks in their 50s and 60s and 70s. And this is happening to our teenagers and our babies. Yes. That you got 8, 9, and 10-year-olds depressed. It's like, yes. What on earth could you be depressed about at 8? Yes.
Yes. Well, it is, and, ironically that you say that, because what we're seeing, as we know that bullying across the nation, and I'll give you an example of that, it's so relevant and prevalent right now. And what it is all about is our children trying to find their niche, trying to identify where they fit in. Because as we know, society and the social media portion of it, it has just taken over our children. Many years ago, as you spoke about the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, we didn't have those things to worry about. It was null and void. It was like you went outside, you played, you spoke on the telephone. Everybody had a great time. But all of this posting, of information, and as I tell my students also, be careful as to what you put on social media.
Correct.
Because what they don't realize is that what you put there, it never, ever goes away.
Correct.
And you may think of it as a game, or you may just be angry at that particular moment. But that's something that follows you forever. And if you put too much there, it can be dangerously effective. And what I mean by that is that when you're placing those things out of anger and frustration because of one incident that occurred, and you're putting in a threatening manner, and that individual perceives it as that, because we don't know what your mindset is when that is done. And then that is cause for next steps to be taken on the legal perspective.
No, you're absolutely right. We tell kids all the time, you have to think in terms of, and a lot of times they think we're kidding them. They think we're just making stuff up. I said, you like, because I deal with grammar and middle school kids that are getting ready to go to high school. I said, you need to understand, the high schools go on your social media sites. Mm-hmm. When you get ready to go to college, the colleges are checking your social media sites. And then when you get ready to apply for a job, guess what? The jobs are checking your social media sites. So it is so important in terms of what is posted. And a lot of times, going a little bit further in terms of going back to what we're talking about with the kids with depression, a lot of times our kids will say stuff like, I want to kill myself, I'm going to kill him, I'm going to blow up this school. And then, for us, and probably the same for you, that's considered a crisis, wherein like they have to go out and they can't come back until a psychiatrist or psychologist have seen them. But the kid will say, I was just playing. And we say, you cannot play with those words. Mm-hmm. You cannot. I don't care how much you teased it. You cannot play in a school setting with the words, "I want to die. I want to go see my mother in heaven. You can't say those words in a school setting, because it will kick off a whole chain of events. Because this is the thing, and I know you can relate to this. We don't know if it's real or not. A kid says I was just playing, but we don't know from our end. And God forbid something happens when you go home. It's going to be who knew and when did they know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why we have a protocol in place for specifically that.
Yes.
For us, our protocol is when a student makes that statement, whomever it is, the teacher, administrator, et cetera, even if it's someone that's working in the cafeteria, they know to notify the school social worker.
Correct.
And then we take it from there, assessing the situation. And it could be several different levels. Of course, we're going to notify that parent. We're going to notify our SRO in the building, and not because we're saying that that child is in trouble as far as the SRO is concerned, but that is the protocol.
Correct.
Because as you stated, we don't know what the situation may possibly be. And then with all of that, additionally, our administrative team is going to be notified.
Correct.
It may be something that has to escalate, that we have to call the ambulance. Because if they're in full crisis mode, we want to err on the side of safety first.
Correct. And listening audience, this is the thing. If you don't get nothing else, and I hope you get a lot out of this interview, but if you get nothing else, we need you to understand that these things are happening at younger and younger ages. Do not take for granted that a 6, 7, or 8-year-old that is showing signs of depression, that is, they're just a kid, go out and play. Do not, because something could happen beyond you're just a kid, go out and play, and you're going to regret that. Like, oh my God, he or she was telling me that and I didn't take them seriously. These issues that Dr. Rivers, Ken, and I are talking about, they are real. And the thing is, it's sad because I just turned 57 years old on the 17th of August. And I tell kids all the time, I would not trade my time of coming through being a child with theirs for nobody's money. For all the tea in China, I would not trade my time of coming through, because I truly, as a kid, had a great time. All these issues that kids are worrying about today, I wasn't worrying about. When I went out and played, I wasn't worried about getting shot. As I became a teenager and a young adult, when I would go to a club, I wasn't worried about getting shot. That is not today. Wherein I just gave you the example that happened Thursday evening at 7 o'clock in the evening, a drive-by shooting where 2 were shot and 1 was killed. The kids were out there playing. People were out there sitting, enjoying the weather. The perpetrators did not care. Those type things I did not deal with whenever I was coming through. So you're right in terms of our kids being under a heck of a lot more pressure than we were, because peer pressure was one thing back in the day. Like you said, with social media, it's a totally different world.
It definitely is. It's amazing. It truly is amazing. And I cannot share enough with the students that I work with and those that I don't work with. As I always tell them, anyone I come in contact with, I cannot impress upon them enough. Think before you act. And we don't expect them to be perfect because they're kids.
Right.
They are entitled to make mistakes, have fun, enjoy life. That's not what we're saying at all. But some of the consequences that come behind that, sometimes sometimes you are not able to recover from them because they are quite serious.
Correct.
And the penalties behind them are severe at times. And if you just kind of take a breath, take a step back, and say, no, let me come away from that crowd. If you're feeling something, make that move and leave.
That's
Follow
right.
it.
That's right. Now, see, this is the thing. Now, this has been sort of kind of like as a principal, as an administrator, this has kind of been my challenge over time. Now, for you as a social worker, one, as part of a calling, because all these things are callings to me, as part of the calling to do that, you probably already had the mentality and the heart to be able to empathize and put yourself in the various predicaments. But that's not everybody's feelings, because everybody has different experiences and they filter information a different way. And if someone who grew up in a way that was nowhere close to the way these kids are growing up now, they have a hard time really being able to understand why the child may be doing what they're doing, and they immediately go to punitive. That's why in our district we've really been pushing this restorative practice, restorative justice, is to help people understand, based on the situation this child is going through, and now you want to go directly to punitive, you're just making the situation worse. So that's been a hard sell, because I know for me as a principal, and I was just saying this in the presentation on Thursday, I've worked with teachers that student do whatever they do in the classroom. They send them down to my office, and I'll talk to the child. I'll talk to them and make sure they understand why what they did wasn't right, and then go back upstairs, apologize to the teacher. Oh, Mr. Medley didn't do nothing. He didn't do nothing, because what they were looking for was a suspension. Mm-hmm. So in many instances, you have people in their mind is like they're not satisfied unless they feel like some type of penalty or consequence has been levied, and that consequence has to be a suspension. As a social worker, and I've had this conversation with guidance counselors as well, how do we kind of like try to help people understand and that's what I think the author of that poem was trying to get at with the pencil thing. You have no idea what I went through just to get here this morning. You're fussing at me about a pencil. Mm-hmm. Talk to me a little bit. How do you with your colleagues, and I'm not talking about your social work colleagues, but like the teachers in the building and administrators, how do you help them get a feel for, wait, I'm not excusing the child's behavior, but you need to understand this?
Well, I always like to take them through a journey. And the restorative practice is fantastic, but I also like to do a little bit of role playing with them that's added on to that, and having them to act out that process, because that's real time. And I give them real cases without the individual's names. So to have them to really feel as if you were in this situation, what would your reaction be?
That's powerful.
And then that changes that mindset. Now, are you going to get to every single individual? You may or may not, but you're certainly going to give them something to think about.
Correct. Absolutely right. That's correct. And see, that's what I was talking about in terms of our experiences and our filter. I mean, there's an example used in terms of, there's a few different types of examples. I know one of them I remember is a story about children who were just carrying on a plane or train or bus or whatever. I mean, and the father was just sitting there, wasn't saying anything, kind of like in a daze. And all the passengers on the plane, train or bus or whatever it was like, why isn't he saying anything? Oh my God, these kids are awful. They're horrid. They were just in their minds passing all kinds of judgment, till finally somebody said, sir, what is wrong with you? Don't you see how bad your children are acting? And he looks at them and says, I'm sorry. We just found out that their mother passed away. That shifted everyone on the bus. That shifted everyone on the plane or the train. Once he said that, because again, had no idea what the kids or he was going through, but they'd already made an assumption. I'm using that little analogy to say that's pretty much what we do with our children.
And I agree. Definitely. And just like I shared in the beginning, that when they come to the building, that's the only place that they're going to get that good morning, good afternoon, how are you doing? Or when they express that anger or that frustration first thing in the morning, and the reaction is, I can't believe he or she did that or said that. It's not particularly you as an individual. It's not about you. Maybe they had to sleep outside or in their car. Maybe they didn't have an opportunity to, get anything to eat the night before. Maybe they experienced their parents going through a domestic situation. Maybe they had a friend who got shot right in front of them.
Correct.
Maybe they had a loss of a family member that they can't openly tell you about right at that particular moment. And the response was, well, you have to get up and move on, because the person that's caring for them was not sure as to how they should direct them about how to deal with it. So it's just simply saying, okay, are you okay this morning? Do you need anything? Or just simply letting them move on, but letting someone know who is able to address it. Hey, Joseph was really upset this morning. Do you mind checking on him?
Right. And see, all the things that you just, to me, one would think, and I do understand both sides of the coin. I really do.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, one would think that would be kind of like common courtesy, common sense. But I know when you deal with that on a daily basis with 20 or 30 at the time, I'm quite sure it can get challenging and it could work the patience. But at the same time, like you said, the child comes in frustrated. Rather than yelling at them for being late, kind of let's say, you know what, let me see a couple minutes after class. What's going on? How you doing this? But that's what I'm talking about with mindset of the adults in the building, that everybody ought to be thinking in those terms, in terms of how they relate to the child. It's 'cause a lot of times the very thing that we as the teacher don't want to happen is what we trigger.
Right, absolutely. There's an old saying, when we know better, we do better.
Correct.
And all of this is definitely a learning process. None of us are perfect, and I always like to say, but we strive for perfection each and every day. And through this process, it will become a norm.
Right.
That, okay, this is how we should proceed. This is how we need to do this. And maybe if the individual that it actually happens to doesn't think about it, but maybe the partner that's standing next to them will tap them and say, hey, don't do,
Right.
Step back for a minute.
No, that's absolutely right. One of the things that I emphasized in my part of the presentation on Thursday was the restorative practices or the restorative justice. This is not just another initiative. This over time has to become a way of life.
Yes.
It's not just, this is something else we got to do. Something else the district said for us to do. No. This is not that. This is, over time, has to become a way of life. And if it doesn't, and maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago, maybe you could poo-poo it. But in 2019, I don't believe we can, only because of where we are with so many folks, as I said earlier, who are traumatized. It's so many, and not only the kids, we teachers and administrators, we're coming into the building traumatized as well.
Definitely, absolutely. It's just so much going on in society right now.
Yes.
So many things that you have to be very cautious and careful. You have to take everything very seriously because you don't know. You really don't know. And the unknowing is what causes you to take that next level step to say, okay, I'm not sure about this, so let me follow the proper procedures and protocols that have been set forth that I know that I should be following, and not put this to the side and say, I'll do it later. No, later has come now.
Right. Because, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, we can call it what we want, but when all is said and done, we're all human beings.
Oh, absolutely.
And regardless of the age, every human being are looking for love and affection, compassion. And when you're dealing with kids who, like you just said, don't get that at home, because I know I got kids that called everything but a child of God at home. I've had children who have gotten suspended for cursing their teacher out or calling their teacher a female dog, this, that, and the other. And we'll be in the post-conference with the parent and the student, and the parent will curse the kid out. And I had, whoa, ma'am, sir.
Right.
Do you understand the very behavior that you're exhibiting right now is the very behavior of what your son and daughter was suspended for?
Definitely. Right. Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
again, I say in many instances, in terms of we as the adults in the building, a lot of times what's normal for us is abnormal for the population we're serving, and what's normal for the population we're serving is abnormal to us. And there's that disconnect. And that's where I'm always trying to work, trying to connect that disconnect there. I'm not saying you excuse the behavior, but at least understand what's driving it.
Right. I fully and totally agree with that.
So what caused you to get, because I looked through your bio as we read it, what kind of drove you into this work?
You know, what drove me is my Auntie K.A.T.I.E. My Auntie K.A.T.I.E. Mae Rivers Kendall. In my junior year of high school, as you shared, I'm originally from Savannah, Georgia, and she was a college professor in social work. And I was in my grandmother's home, and she would come during the holidays, etc., and have her books laid out and talk about social work. And I would tell her, you know, gosh, I can't do that. That's not for me. And she would sit there and spread those books out. And the more and more she spread those books out, I would take a peek at them every now and again. And she said, yes, this work is for you. So the more and more she did it, I became even more pulled in and intrigued. So the more she saw that I was intrigued, she would use terminology, social work terminology. And one word she used one day, she said, I need for you to learn the vernacular. I said, what in the world is that? So she, of course, being herself with those glasses tipped on her nose, she began to break things down for me. And I became drawn in. As my chair was at the end of the table, it got closer to the table. And when I began to learn about the organizations on the local, state, and national levels, which she was a part of, and the advocacy part of it, the way she advocated for her students, the way she directed them and taught them, you know, the steps and the processes of this work, I began to be, you know, more involved in it and loved it. And that's what got me doing this work. And I continue to do it. And I say with every breath in me, I will continue to do this on the local, state, and national level because I love the work that I do in social work. And it's relaying that information that's going on right now across the world with the work. You know, there are so many cases, so many families and children that need assistance. They don't have a voice for themselves right
Correct.
now, but it doesn't mean that that voice is not going to come at some point for them. It's growing into that and having that confidence within themselves. So I'm here to be that voice for them and to empower and strengthen them until they can do it on their own.
No, and that's a good point. I just had a parent interview yesterday. She wants to bring her child to the school that I'm now leading, and I interviewed her, and I was telling her, I said, you know what, I don't have an issue with a parent saying to me, Mr. Medley, that homework you all are sending home, I have no idea how to do it because I know, now, mind you, I have 3 degrees and there was stuff my kids brought home and I didn't know because they do things differently. It's not plain old 2 + 2 = 4 anymore.
No, it's not.
Right. You got to show all these different equations. And I mean, so I get it. But so what I was sharing with the parent was if you just let us know, then we can get someone to help you. Then we can get someone to help you to help your child. But we can't operate on what we don't know. So it can't be a situation where you just don't send the homework back because you didn't know how to do it.
Right.
You got to let somebody know. And back to your point about you being an advocate and a voice, there are people who really do not know how to advocate for themselves. Mm-hmm. And they really do need to stand up and say, I need some help in this situation. Now, interestingly enough, as you were sharing your story, what was going through my mind was one day there's going to be a child or children, who knows how many, and that's the beauty of education in terms of legacy, that are going to share that same story that you just shared, but it's going to be your name in it.
Well, that would be a blessing to me as, you know, as I do this work. I carry my aunt with me every day because she has been called on another assignment, as I like to call it. In 1996, she passed away on Christmas Day. So I carry a picture with her in my phone every day. So the work that I do is in honor of her, although I said I do love this work. So I would not trade the profession that I'm in for anything in the world.
Right.
So as an honor to her, I can only pray that I'm doing everything and more as far as her dream and the vision that she had. And I'm hoping, my prayers, that I've taken that vision even further as, ideas and thoughts and all of those things come to my mind. And I know that I always say that she's my guardian angel when it comes to this work, because I sit and I always reflect on all those long conversations that we had during those times that I did have her with me physically. So, it's just amazing. It truly is amazing. Well, and I count it as a blessing.
It really is. And that's one of the things in terms of education. We do have the opportunity to leave legacies. And I had this conversation the other day as well. I've had it many times in terms of we plant seeds now that may not grow for 5, 10. Some of them grow immediately. We see them quickly. But many of them we don't see 5, 10, 15 years down the road when we happen to run into them somewhere. Either on the jobs or somewhere out on the road or in the street, and they come back and say, I remember when. Like I said, that story that you just told about your aunt, there's going to be kids out there that's going to say, if it wasn't for Dr. Rivers Cannon, there's going to be. And trust me on that one. That's where that's where our legacies come in. We'll be dead and gone or transitioned on, or how did you on another assignment? However, we will not be on the place we call Earth, and there will still be people saying, I remember that social worker. I remember that principal. I remember that teacher. I remember that guidance counselor. There's going to be people. This I know.
Well, I thank you for that.
And it really is, the work that we do really is about helping other people. It really is it's really about making life better for others. And that's, like you said, that is a blessing. Now, in terms of, because this is, listening audience, we were talking about social media, but social media is like fire. It can cook your meal. Or it can kill you. It can burn your house down. All right. So if you use social media positively, correctly, and as a positive tool, it is extremely useful. This is where Dr. Rivers Cannon and I met. We met on LinkedIn. And because I was putting together a group for media people and for folks who just, we're trying to get ahead in the field in the industry, whatever. And Dr. Rivers Cannon joined the group. And then we started going back and forth, and I invited everybody in the group to, schedule themselves to be on the show. And so Dr. Rivers Cannon was the first one to take me up on my offer. And I thank you so much for that. I'm hoping the rest of the group, because we're about 142 now.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
It's growing. It went from 0 to now we're at 142. Hopefully it will keep growing. But if not, we will work with who we have. And I'm really looking for the group to become interactive. So I've invited everyone, whoever wants to schedule, we'll get them scheduled sometime over the next however many months, a year, however long it takes, because the show is only on once a week. But however long it takes, whoever wants to come on can come on. So I thank you for taking me up on my offer, and it's so timely because school just started for you. It'll be starting for me in another week and a half or so. And so, and listening audience, really, what Dr. Rivers Cannon is talking about is so real. And I know to us it's even realer because we deal with it on the daily, but the impacts is everywhere else in society.
Yes.
So it is truly, like Dr. King said, what impacts one directly is going to impact everyone else indirectly.
Very true. Very true.
There's no question about it. So when we're dealing with our kids, and this is something else that you said, because this subject is like really, you can probably feel the passion coming out as I'm talking. But one of the tricks to this whole thing is, and you said it earlier, is we as the adults, when we're dealing with the parents and the children, we can't take it personally.
Right.
Because when they come in amped up, it really isn't about us.
No.
Kids acting out, carrying on, they're not trying to. And this is where I struggle with the teachers, because they be trying to get some get back.
Yeah. At times, very true.
Right. I see this. I know. Now they're not going to say that, and I've told that to them straight up. You just want some get back. That kid is giving you heck all day. You just want to. You made my life miserable. I want to make yours miserable. But you can't. They're not doing that because it's you.
Right.
They're not doing that to you personally. There's so many things going on. And so that's why we're not saying we're going to let it be willy-nilly, but at the same time, there's alternate ways to handle these situations. And it really does require love. It requires compassion. It requires, and believe me, you will get so much more back out of your families and kids once they see that you honestly care about them. and that you're not just the only thing you want to do is, well, you made my life miserable, I'm going to make yours miserable. When they see you're not just about that, they will work with you.
They certainly will. They definitely will. And, I want to say this, too. A lot of times, a number of our parents feel intimidated
yes.
for one reason or another. It could be that they've had a bad experience years prior to. It could be that they have lack of understanding of what's going on
Correct.
with their children because maybe their educational level is not up to par.
Correct.
Where they feel it should be. Just to give some examples. So if they at times come in on a defensive level, and I'm not saying all the time, but those are various reasons why those attitudes, if you will, are as such. So it's not on a personal note. They feel as though, okay, I need to put my defenses up first before someone comes at me to make me feel as though, to belittle me.
Correct.
If you will.
That is correct. And that point is real in terms of, and that's something many administrators or teachers, because a lot of times the populations you're serving are folks who, like Dr. Rivers Cannon just said, didn't have a very good educational experience when they were young. So they got that, and they may not have gone on to get advanced degrees or what have you. So when they walk in the door, they're already feeling inferior. Their self-esteem is already somewhat low because now they feel like they're going up against people who are educated, who feel that they are better than them. So like she said, that defense is already there. That's there right off the bat. So they come in their minds having to combat that I need to help them understand that I'm just as good as they are. I'm a human being just like you. You may be good educationally, but guess what? I'm good verbally in terms of cursing you out.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Right. I'm good being, you may be good academically, but I'm great being aggressive. So, those are these are all the dynamics that are going on when parents and kids are interacting with educators, that if the educator understood that, they would be able to say, okay, you know what, I understand Miss such and such or Mr. such and such. However, and I use this example all the time. A few years ago, I was sitting at my desk. There was a woman, a mother. She was standing over my desk, and she came and she hollered and yelled and called me everything but a child of God. And I just sat there and looked at her. Mm-hmm. And she said, Mr. Medley, you're looking at me like I'm crazy. And I just smiled and said, you said it, I didn't. And she busted out laughing. And at that point, we were able to talk. Mm-hmm. But had I come back at her yelling and hollering and calling her names, we wouldn't have gotten anything done.
Not at all. Not at all.
So you just have to be aware. Now, in the bio, because this is the reading circle, but we don't always do reading topics. Are you writing a book, or did you write a book?
I have not. That's something that quite a few people have said to me that it is time. And it's so funny that you are bringing that up again. So, I guess that's divine intervention that is coming at me from all ends here. So that, I guess that's another hint.
Exactly. So, all right, well, I tell you what, you're free to, all my guests that come on, I always have an open invitation to come back. But by all means, when you get the book done and it's released, and we'll put that out there, come back on if I'm still on the air, which I hope to be.
Oh, you're going to be back on the air. Let's put that out there.
Yes, indeed.
Let's speak it into existence. That's what my Auntie Sharon always says. Let's speak that into existence.
So by all means, you'll be welcome to come back to talk about your book that you're going to. But like I said, all the time our discussions are not about work because they're relevant, cogent discussions. And for the listening audience, some of these things that we talked about, you really need to have an eye out for. Depression and mental illness is hitting younger and younger. That's not something just for the older generation or our senior saints. No. This is hitting because our kids are being traumatized younger and younger. You heard us say earlier, none of us were asked to be born. None of us were asked to be born into the situations and families we were born into. And as a result, is manifesting some really oddball behaviors that we have to be able to deal with because schools now have been pressed to wear more and more hats. Again, back in my time coming through, teacher was a teacher. But now we have multiple hats that must be worn. It's not optional. if you're going to get through your day, you're going to wear those hats, whether you want to or not, or either you get out the business.
Agreed.
So we need to be aware as parents, as community members, as educators, and if it wasn't for folks like Dr. Rivers Cannon, because I can say over my educational career, I've had, let me see, each time I change buildings, I get a different guidance counselor. I've had 2 excellent guidance counselors that I could not do without. I mean, I could not. I mean, when I talk about my right, and in many instances, right and left hands, it was the social workers and guidance counselors who were able to do it. Because to be honest with you, it was rare that I met with a student that I didn't have a guidance counselor or social worker sitting in there with me. So that we can kind of really piece this thing together. I'm saying all that to say that it is a critical role. And for those of you out there who are parents, as you go back to school, if you're in school, you need to seek out and really get to know your social worker and your guidance counselors and everybody in the building for that matter. But certainly, because these are the folks that are going to be there to counsel your child. These are the folks that are going to try to help your child and you get through these things. So if you had a book at this point, I would say we would go into the book. But this is what I do at the end of the interview. I give because in your bio or when I saw you on LinkedIn, there was more to it than just a social worker, motivational speaker, and this is your chance to promote. You're going to get a chance to promote. If anybody needs your services, if you have any web pages or any visitation or how they can get in touch with you for your service, this is your opportunity. You want to shout out anybody? I'm going to turn the mic off because we've come down to the end. It's gone quickly, as you can see. And this is your opportunity to kind of promote. You can say anything with the exception of anything that has a dollar amount in it. But anything short of that, the microphone's yours.
Well, I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be on the show this morning. Definitely. The way that you can get in contact with me, I'm on Instagram, Dr. RC. I am on Facebook, which is my name, Terriyln Rivers Cannon. You can reach out to me on Twitter as well, at Cannon_Blastoff. I also am on the radio, Bold Brave Media Network.
All right now.
I have a podcast that's called Dare to Soar with Dr. RC. As a matter of fact, I'll be going on the air here shortly. It airs from 10 to 11 every Saturday Eastern Standard Time. And on last week, in honor of my aunt, I just released my website, soarwithk.com, where I'll be doing more of that motivational speaking. So please check my website out. And that is all of my contact information.
Well, I'll tell you what, now you got to put all of that in our group. You got to post all that in. If you didn't do it already, you got to post all that into the media group on LinkedIn. I mean, especially like the podcast and all that, because I knew it was something in the LinkedIn and all that. So you really know media as what it's all about in terms of the podcast. And again, it's another wonderful way to share. It's another wonderful way for us to get the word out and the message out about the stuff that we were talking about this morning and beyond. So I wish you nothing but the best with your media endeavors. And because again, it really is about, this is the thing. All these things that we do, whether it's in the technology or social media, it really is all connected to educating and making life better for others.
It definitely is.
So that's why, listening audience, I encourage you to look Dr. Rivers Cannon up. You know what? Give everything again. Give the podcast, the website, give that all the information again, and make sure you post it on the LinkedIn site.
My podcast is on the Bold Brave Media Network, and it's called Dare to Soar with Dr. RC. It airs every Saturday from 10 to 11 Eastern Standard Time. And as I shared, I'll be going on the air here shortly. And I just had a release of my website, which is soarwithk.com, and that's in honor of my aunt, where I'll be getting out doing more motivational speaking. On Instagram, it's Dr. RC. Facebook, it's my name, Terriyln Rivers Cannon. Twitter, it's at Cannon_Blastoff. And those are all my contacts.
All right. Well, I tell you what, Dr. Rivers Cannon, have a wonderfully blessed day, week. We will be in touch. I will get a copy of the recording to you. It will be going up on my YouTube channel. That's where all the archives are for those who don't rise early like we did. They can go back to my YouTube channel and they can hear the entire interview there. So I'll be putting that up in the next couple of days. It'll be an MP3 link as well. You can share it however you'd like, rebroadcast it on your show, however, whatever you want to do with it is yours once I give it to you.
Thank you.
Had a wonderful time. And like I said, it was such an appropriate and relevant topic given that we're at the beginning of the school year.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, and you have a fantastic week.
Thank you. Take care now.
All righty, you too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care.